Thanks, Concorla, and thanks to Deputy Collins for allowing me to share her time. I think it's indicative of the seriousness of this issue that we've had to fight for the right or the space to speak here today, and I do think it's absolutely critical. And I too support the launch of the Mandate Trade Union campaign this week, Secure Hours of Work, a Better Future Charter. And that campaign stresses the need for us as legislators to act now on the issue of banded hours contracts, not in a couple of months, now. And it is an issue which came to the fore as a result of the heroic struggle of Dunstores workers in particular back in 2015. Now, other deputies have alluded to it, but the rise of insecure, temporary, low-paid work has absolutely skyrocketed in this state over the past decade. The share of part-time work has increased from 17% to about 22%, and the share of involuntary part-time work within that group is 51% compared to 24% before the crisis. So in other words, people want more hours but they can't get it. And as a result, Ireland has the second highest rate of underemployment in the EU, an absolutely damning statistic. And there is a direct correlation between the increase in casual employment and the rate of state subsidy to those in employment. We have the despicable spectacle of profitable companies like Dunstores and Tesco seeing their share of wealth massively increase while the taxpayer subsidises their wage bill. Family income support was received by 21,800 families in 2001. This has increased to 50,000 families in 2014. Job seekers' benefit to casual workers has gone up from 16,400 payments in 2001 to 65,600 payments in 2014. In other words, public money which could be used to improve the social wage, health, education, childcare and so on is being used to subsidise the pockets of profitable companies at the expense of the taxpayer and, critically, as other deputies have said, at the expense of the workers whose lives have been destroyed by being indicted in precarious employment. Incredibly stressful, can't save, can't get credit, can't plan for the long term or the short term, can't even get a night's sleep because you don't know what roster you'll have next week or how many hours you're going to get, not to mind the stress of wondering can you pay the rent, the food bill, kids' needs in school and so on. And we've heard the stories from Dunn's workers and others, and I think it is fair to say that it's women workers in particular who bear the brunt of this type of precarious employment. And, you know, I suppose the main point we have to stress here is that the committee has done the work. Deputy Cullinan has brought forward a very good baseline to work for, from an opposition deputy who has to be mindful of money messages. We've a good piece of work. The committee has spent hours of work trying to improve that legislation. And, you know, let's be clear here. Halting the progress of Deputy Cullinan's bill would be an enormous setback for workers who need certainty in their contracts, and I have to say it will be a particular blow for workers in Dunstores who, let's remember, are going to return to the Labour Court in February next year after a 6-month suspension of their case with no legislation in place to defend their position, and that would be incredibly cynical if we were to allow that to happen. And the only way that those people can get justice in the Labour Court is to proceed with the committee's work and with Deputy Cullinan's bill. There's no other way. And I mean, I do think it's a real indictment of the lack of a critical media we have in this state. When a couple of weeks ago they launched this headline, oh, the Taoiseach is going to tackle zero-hour and low-wage contracts with the new government bill. And the media never once looked at the fact that this House, through Deputy Cullinan's bill and the work of all parties, including the government parties, on the committees, had already progressed a bill that would precisely do that. And in actual fact, what the government is doing is not helping the situation, is blocking the situation. Let's call it what it is, because that's what you're trying to do here. And I would use the time here to plead with the Minister and the government to support the work of the committee, to get behind the bill that is already there, to improve it. The Deputy and the committee have said they're prepared to improve it. That's the only way in which we'll really tackle the situation for workers now. And there is an imperative now for workers who are before the Labour Court in this state. And even at this stage, I would ask you to please do that.
Thank you, Deputy Daly. Now,